The last topic we want to talk about here in spreadsheets is a topic that I get asked questions about often, and maybe not right now, but as you go to other classes and as you start doing work more and more with data, um, being able to take data off of a spreadsheet and being able to make charts and graphs out of it is a really good skill. Um, the good thing about this is that both Sheets and Excel and Numbers do a really nice job of very quickly and easily turning data into graphs. There are probably some things we want to pay attention to while we do it, but the mechanics of actually making a graph, not that hard, quite honestly. So there are probably some things I want to point out to you now, and then we'll get you to play with this a little bit just to get some experience in charting data. Um, I think that charts are a really great way to visually represent data. Sometimes it's not easy to pour through uh, spreadsheets and charts of sorry, collections of data, especially large collections of data. So can taking a graph and using it to be able to represent data first in a more interesting way, in an easier way to read and to comprehend, um, I think this can be a really good thing. There are ways you can make charts very hard to understand, but if you do charts well, we can take fairly complex data and can graphically represent it to make the data easier to understand. Now, not all charts are created equal, and not all charts are meant to work on any set of data. There are probably, I would say, four different types, or four main types of charts I'd like to talk about. That will maybe describe what chart you're going to put together, and then what type of data, depending on what you're doing with it, what type of chart works with different types of data. First, are you doing comparison? Are you looking to compare one or more data sets? I want to compare data A versus data B. Maybe I put out some survey results and I'm just trying to see who answered what on their survey. Maybe you're comparing items or showing differences over the course of time. So are you comparing the data? Are you trying to show a relationship? Are you trying to show a connection between two or more variables? The classic one I think about in science is when we talk about um, pressure and volume. Pressure and volume over time. So I want to see, is there a relationship between pressure and volume? And can we show that on a graph? Next is composition. I like to display parts of a whole. Perhaps we've surveyed 100 students and we want to know their favorite field trip location, and here are the different answers that we got back. Okay, and then distribution. The last type here, showing how variables are distributed over time. Usually time is the big factor there, and I want to try to see how variables are distributed in that time period. So these are the four major types of charts we're going to look at, and then now I want to look at the format of the chart, the kind of chart we can use to be able to represent this data. So the first type of chart is a bar chart and a column chart. They're basically the same thing. This is a column chart, and this is a bar chart here. They basically mean the same thing. It really just depends on how you want to show the data. So this chart here is really a comparison type of a scenario. Good for making comparisons across categories. Here we've maybe surveyed students and want to know their favorite class, and here we've put all of the values on a chart, because maybe this is an easier way to see where the student responses were. Okay, so these are bar charts or column charts. This is a bar chart. This is a column chart. Column charts, the columns or the bars of the information go vertically. Bar charts, they go horizontally. And it really depends on what your preference is on how you want to display it. Next is a line chart showing relationships. This is a really good way to show the relationship between two variables. So in this case, this is actually showing over time. So here it is. This is some of the cafeteria sales data we've been playing with. So here is the here are the sales over the course of the week, and then the quantity sold, right? So I think this is really helpful when we want to see what's going on with sales, right? So apparently French fry sales climb during the week. What goes on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday that causes this spike in French fry sales? Why does soda drop off dramatically after Wednesday, right? So can we see the relationship between two variables here on the X and Y axis? So what is the relationship between sales and day of the week? Next are pie charts. These are really popular especially when you're trying to show the comparison, when we want to try to show how a certain value relates to all the other values as part of the whole. In this case, we showed the total revenue from the cafeteria sales spreadsheet. The total revenue for that week was $11,783. Okay, so now I want to know, of this $11,700, how did that break down per item sold? Right, so French fries accounted for 40% of this total revenue, and that 40% was equal to $4,700. Right, and that bacon, egg, and cheeses were 11% of the total revenue, and that salads were 10% of the total revenue, et cetera, et cetera. So here, when you want to show a total and then break it down by how that total got put together, that's a pie chart. That's that composition. How is the whole put together? And then we have another one here, which is really popular, especially in science and statistics, called a scatter plot. This is can show the relationship between two sets of data, but we want to show how is that information distributed over the course of the data set. So here we're plotting a car, maybe different cars, and what they have on their highway miles per gallon, their fuel efficiency. How many miles per gallon do they get on the highway, and how many do they get in the city? So we would kind of maybe this car in particular only gets 15 miles to the gallon highway and gets 13 in the city, right? So you're kind of showing the relationship on both graphs. This car here gets about 35 miles to the gallon on the highway and only, let's say, 23 or 24 miles per gallon in the city, right? So what we're trying to show here is trends in data. Basic trends. You can see that even though we just randomly have put these dots on the chart, there is this general vertical trend here, right? That somehow as the highway miles per gallon are increasing, the city miles per gallon are also increasing. So maybe we can talk about that relationship here. So this is called a scatter plot, and it's really great for showing how data from a couple of different data sets distributes itself over the course of time or a scenario. So one of the major questions you need to ask yourself is, what am I trying to do with my graph, right? What is the type of information that I'm trying to show, and what story am I trying to tell about that data? So not all charts are going to work. To do something like this and to show the sales totals over a week, maybe not the best chart to use. So some of it is going to just getting used to, if I have this type of data, what type of chart should I create? Right, so those are some of your options. And there are lots of other types of charts out there. Some of them are are easy to understand. Some of them are a little bit more complicated, or some of these are just varieties of these basic types of charts. So you can look at some of those very specifically in the future. So here's a really good example of why charting data could be really helpful. Let's say that I wanted to talk about McDonald's. I'm giving a presentation on McDonald's, and I want to talk about their sales totals. Showing data like this can be confusing for some people. This is a lot of numbers on the screen. There's a lot of stuff going on here. Maybe it's not quite as easy to see the trends in data this way. So instead, maybe I'll do this. I'd rather chart the data this way, and now you can very clearly see that cheeseburger sales have been up each year for the last 3 years, but Big Mac sales are declining, right? So we can is putting the data on a chart a better way of showing the data. Does it make more sense to display the data to your audience this way versus just putting raw numbers on the screen? This is some very basic numbers, but let's say I had weekly sales numbers for this. You're talking hundreds of data points. I'm not going to be able to print them out for anyone like this. I would rather just see a chart, right? So I like this idea of being able to take the data that we've summarized and organized in our spreadsheets, and then being able to visually organize it and show it in a different format, maybe for a presentation or a paper you're writing. Okay. In the next video, I like to show you just a little bit of the mechanics of how to chart data and how to make graphs. Again, you will find that, especially in Google, it is very easy. Google helps you along, but there are some things you just want to know about, so you can pay attention to as we work with charts.